This morning, we're digging deeper, literally, into gardening and sharing some tips on how you can keep your garden veggies fresh year-round. Joining me live now over Zoom is Bridgette Brannon with the Alabama Cooperative Extension System. Bridgette, thanks so much for joining us here on Alabama Live.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
A lot of people can their veggies to preserve them. What are the benefits of freezing them instead?
Well, freezing is really quick, it's easy, and it does retain a lot of the food's, color, the flavor, the texture, and the nutritive value as well. So it's just, it's better in that respect for other methods of preservation.
Are there certain
and
veggies?
You can keep it for, 8 to 12 months in the freezer.
Are there certain veggies that freeze better than others, work better in the freezer than others?
The ones that I would say that do not freeze well would be things like cabbage, lettuce, cucumbers, if you're planning to use them as in a raw salad, that type of thing. Now, if you're going to pickle them, as in coleslaw or some kind of pickle marinated, salad or product, then they would freeze fine that way, but not as a raw, vegetable. Things that freeze really well, that's going to be your peas, your beans, corn freezes really well. Any of your greens are going to freeze well. So things like that.
What are the steps we need to take before we freeze our veggies?
And I know, I'm glad you asked that because that is a very important question. A lot of times when you look for how to freeze things on Pinterest or online, you'll see and they'll leave out the blanching step. And that is one of the most important or the most important step in blanching. But in freezing is to make sure that those vegetables are blanched. And I would say the first thing would be that you would want to be sure that you select, vegetables when they're at their peak. You want to make sure that you pick them and make sure that they're fresh, because remember, when you're preserving anything, it's not going to get any fresher once you put it up, once you freeze it, once you can it. So you want to pick it when it's at its peak, and then put it in the freezer as quickly as you possibly can after it's picked. And when you're washing it, you always want to wash your vegetables prior to freezing. Make sure that they are free of, this is a good time to sort for size, making sure you get uniform sizes, to freeze, to put in the containers. Going through and making sure if there's any blemishes, any spots on your peas that you need, where bugs have gotten in there, or worms, that you can go ahead and eliminate those prior to freezing. So this is a good time to look through that, to wash. If you have greens or anything that you're going to freeze, you want to wash it prior to. And definitely, especially if you have batches of, greens, turnips, collards, those kind of things, you want to wash them, multiple times and change that water out, just because they have a lot of dirt and that kind of thing. And then, of course, you would want to blanch. And blanching is just that process where you're essentially cooking that vegetable a little bit. But what that does is it stops the enzyme action, which can destroy the flavor, the fresh flavor taste in your vegetables. It can, if the enzymes are left in their active state, then it causes a change in flavor and color to your vegetables. So, after about 4 to 6 weeks in the freezer, they're going to start to you'll see that change in that color and that texture if you don't blanch them. So just always blanch. And then once you blanch, and you'll just have to follow your recipe, make sure that you use, Extension puts out a book called Food Preservation in Alabama that tells you step by step what you're freezing. I actually have a publication that I redid along with Dr. Evelyn Creighton and Elizabeth Downey, where you just, that tells you step by step how to freeze vegetables. And that's online at our website, A.C.E.S.edu. And so you can go online there and you can find out step by step how to pretty much freeze anything. But, that is really important. Once you've blanched your vegetable for the recommended amount of time, and so each vegetable is different. And then you want to be sure that you cool that vegetable and then, cool it properly and then freeze it.
All right, Bridgette, so important to go to that website and look at that publication so you know what's best for each veggie. You can make sure that it's nice and preserved and tasting good when you decide to eat it. Bridgette, thanks so much for joining us here on Alabama Live. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Glad to be here.